V6 Camaros are Camaros too. V8 discrimination has gone on too long. V6 Camaros are real people.
A V8 does not have to be in a car to make it a muscle car. V6s are cool too.
Guys, that's on fire. There's explosions going on.
It's better than carburetor. That's not what we're arguing.
I think that's not good.
I'm so for horsepower angry right now. V6.
They're lying to us.
This problem my whole life. I've been in there before. I could just more of the sum of this parts them without drive away angrily. V6s and V8s can get along in this society. It's 2024.
Yeah. 4 cylinders are Camaros too.
Huh? What? No. 4 cylinders don't count. You're not part of this.
What? So you can have V6s Camaros are real, but 4 cylinders don't count?
Yeah, that's right. V6s only.
That's racist.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another eMoney YouTube video. You thought I was gone, but I am back. Here with my new daily driver, this 2016 Chevrolet Camaro 2LT. So, first let's address the elephant in the room. Welcome to my new film studio, which I bought specifically for filming videos. Definitely. This is my new daily driver, as I've said before. Longtime viewers will know that before this, I had a 2016 Dodge Dart, and before that, I had another 2014 Dodge Dart. But this replaces my red Dart. And no, I wasn't in an accident this time. I bought this because I wanted it. And we'll talk about that more during the driving experience. So, what is this, right? It is a 2016 Chevy Camaro. So 2016 was the first year of the 6th generation Camaro. The 5th generation, the one that came before this, was the first Camaro to kind of come back, and it was in the Transformers movie and everybody lost their mind. This is a refresh of that car. It's on a new chassis. It's been pretty much fully updated. It looks pretty similar, but it's actually smaller, it's lighter, and it's on a brand new chassis called the Alpha chassis, which is under the ATS cars as well, and pretty much specifically made for the Camaro, which is pretty awesome. Let's also address the second elephant in the room. If you come around to the front, this is a 2LT Camaro, not an SS, not a ZL one. That means it's the base level Camaro, which you have 2 options in it. You could get the 4-cylinder turbocharged, or this, the 3.6 liter direct injected dual overhead cam V6. Here we go, hydraulic struts, very nice. And here it is. You can tell there's definitely a lot of space in here, right? Normally the V8 would come way up front. You have all this room here, which makes belt service very easy. But this engine, I personally like very much. A lot of people go, oh, it's just a V6 Camaro? You bought a V6 Camaro? The V6, I think, is a great option and should not be just looked down upon like it typically is. I got this car for a great price. It makes 336 horsepower, 284 foot-pounds of torque, and it's quick. It revs to 7,000 RPM, and it sounds great. The great thing Chevy did with this car, in my opinion at least, is that when they made the V6 Camaro, they didn't make it just the economy version of the V8. This is still a performance car. It just happens to be less performance than the V8, but 10 grand less I paid for this over a V8 I could find with the same trim. So, awesome engine. Like I said, the V8's push rod, it's huge. This is compact, 3.6 liters. It makes a lot more power per liter than the V8. Not saying the V8's, you know, the option you shouldn't go with. If I could get a V8, I would. But this V6 is pretty great. Dual overhead cam, direct injection. It's a good engine, and you'll hear it later. It sounds cool. Now, while we're up front, let's talk about the styling of this car, because another big reason over the technology you get, I didn't want a 5th gen Camaro. They start kind of look dated. The facelift ones still look pretty good, but I just think they cleaned up this design so well. It still looks modern. I had to remind myself, this is 2016, this car is 8 years old now, which it doesn't look it to me. But up front, you have a really cool design. I think another thing Chevy did great with this car is that they didn't make the V6 look like an economy car. It still looks great. This has the RS package, which you get with this badge. Deceptive badging, because this isn't the Chevy Camaro RS, which previous years, like 80s, the RS was the V6 Camaro. This is a LT Camaro, which is the trim, and then the RS is an exterior package you get on that. Very confusing, but Chevy did it with a bunch of their cars. My mom's Cruze has an RS package. This is the same thing. The RS package is just a design package. But with that, you get LED lights here. You get these vertical LED lights, which is kind of reminiscent of the ZL1. Pretty cool. And I just think it's such a clean design, where the grille is different than the SS, but it still looks good. You can tell it's a V6, but it's not like, oh, it's ugly because it's a V6. This is different. A cool Easter egg you'll find on the front of these cars as well is in these really cool LED lights, you actually have a hollow air channel that goes through there into the wheel well to increase aerodynamics. That's like, you find that like on McLarens. I just think that's really cool. Not a lot of people know about it. Another interesting thing they did here, this car is a great daily for many reasons, one of which is this splitter. Looks great, right? And it sticks out real far, but that is the exact height at which those parking cement blockers are. So if you pull forward too far, it clears it and you don't scrape the crap out of it. Whether if you had like a ZL1 or an SS, you have this extended splitter and that would probably scrape it. Another reason to get a V6. We come along the side here, you can see some more just awesome design elements. This car is all about the design. I love how it looks. You get these awesome 5-spoke 20-inch wheels, which is another part of the RS package, and get these very classic lines that date back to the original Camaro, right? This huge haunch here over the rear wheels, and just that design that goes up, down the side, and up through the window. Very reminiscent of the original Camaros, and it still looks great on this car. Also new for this car is a Camaro badge. You get a specific badge for the Camaro, which I don't believe you got on the 5th gen. But it looks similar to, again, the original Camaro badge from the 60s. Another thing with this car is you could option it with a sunroof. This does not have a sunroof, but without the sunroof, you get this really cool sort of double bubble roof where it's high up over the passengers' heads, which gives you more headroom. And it's reminiscent of old race cars. Old race cars would have that so you have room for a helmet and still a low roof line. And that's just really cool. I'd rather have that than the sunroof, personally. Around back, we can talk about one more thing. First off, again, the design is just so cool. You get this little lip on here, which is also part of the RS package. You just gotta get the RS package. Get another RS badge there, which I think is fitting. Again, like I said, from the 80s, like a V6 Camaro would have RS on it, and I think that just kind of ties it in nicely. And these really cool taillights that show up here. Again, LED, and I also think it's cool that they're not fully red. You have some white in here and the red design around. Just neat. This also has 4 exhaust pipes, as you can see. That's because it has the optional sports exhaust package. They have valves in them. You can do different loudness, and that depends on the driving mode, which we'll talk about when we get into the interior. But without that option, you just have the twin pipes. So if you're looking for a Camaro that has sports exhaust, 4 pipes. Looking at that. Now, while we're back here, we can talk about the trunk, and with that, the practicality of the car. This is my daily, and it's my only new car. We have my Fiero, which you should go watch that video. We might do an update on, and another car, which is a 2-door rear-wheel drive GM car, which might be coming up in a future video. But with those, I have 2 classics, and this is my daily. So I have 3 2-door rear-wheel drive GM cars. Kind of a strange garage, but with this car, you're like, oh, why'd you buy a Camaro? It's so impractical as a daily driver. It's not. Look at this trunk. Now, ignore the size of the trunk. That's regulatory because of where the taillights are. The taillights cannot be on a moving piece of bodywork. So your entrance is pretty narrow, but the trunk goes all the way back to where I can't even reach the back seat. The back seats also fold down. When I moved, I had everything out of my closet and it all fit in this car. This is a practical car. You are being lied to. Crossovers are not the only way to have a daily driver. Don't buy one. Buy a Camaro. Moving on to the interior here, which you can see is spec'd very nicely, if I do say so myself. This is the silver or gray interior, I don't know the name, spec'd with this color, which is blue velvet, and it also matches the silver wheels pretty nicely. But getting into the interior, you can see this car, like I said before, is optioned the 2LT interior instead of the 1LT. So you get a ton of options with that. My favorite being this mood lighting here, which you can change the color to whatever you want. I think the green looks good with the blue, but you get it around the screen, you get it in the cup holders, you get it on the doors. You also get the upgraded Bose sound system, which sounds pretty good to me. You get the lighted door sills, which say Camaro, which is pretty awesome. And then you also get memory seats here. So this is my sister's setting. This is my setting. It's great. You don't have to worry about moving your seat ever again. You can set it. I have 2 of those there, and you have power seats front. Both front seats are power. With the car on now, so you can see all of the features, there's some pretty awesome stuff in here that's all included in the TLT package. These right here, you get your cooled seats, your heated seats, your temperature control, which, if you don't have a Camaro, you probably don't know, is controlled with these around the vents. How cool is that? That's just neat engineering. All of your other systems, obviously you just put it all on auto, and it'll set your temperature to whatever you have it here, which is, it's just the best. I love that feature. You also get, in the gauge cluster here, you get this huge screen in the middle. And all of this is configurable, which is pretty awesome for 2016. That wasn't so common. It's controlled with the buttons on the steering wheel. You can see right now it's in the default setting. I can change it to speed. It displays your mileage and your speed. You got your oil pressure, your engine temp, your fuel, your battery voltage, and then these are fixed gauges here on the side. But some cool stuff you can do. You can see all of these pages you can go to. You have all the performance pages, your audio, so your music you're playing, the phone, the nav, which is not the Apple CarPlay nav. That is the nav the car comes with, and it's horrible, and I've never used it. Just use your phone. Apple CarPlay is the best. But if you go to settings, you can change the display theme. So that's the normal one. You can go to the technology, which looks pretty cool too. And then you can display whatever you want in the middle there. Pretty cool, shows your compass, and you just get the 2 gauges, your temperature, and the fuel there. And then you have another one called media, which is just a different way of displaying things. You got your 2 gauges there. I usually leave it on standard just because you get more gauges there, and more gauges is always better, but it's pretty configurable. You have a lot of displays you can show and display through that. You also get a heads-up display, which is very nice, but it displays your speed, your RPM, and your G-forces. We can cover the screen a little bit. It's your standard screen. I also just want to talk about how nice it is not to have an iPad screen that looks like it's just stuck onto the dash and sticks out super ugly. This is actually integrated in, I think, quite nicely, as well as this leather here, which I don't think is leather, but it looks like leather. That's cool. But you have your standard apps. Pretty much you don't need any of this. You have your lighting, which is cool. You can choose from all of these colors. I don't think you need any more than that. And you can choose it to link to drive mode, which is cool as well. So it's blue in Tour, it's red in Sport, and it's white in Snow, I think. So before we go any further, I just want to talk about the layout of this interior. I love the layout. With one exception, this center console is horrible. First off, look at the shape of it. And then there's no springs or anything. So when I want to open it, if say I'm driving, it's kind of like, and then it slams and you look like an idiot. But when you do get it open, you can see that there's really barely any space in here at all, considering how large it is. And it's just kind of weird. But you do have nice cup holders here, and they don't block your arm while you're shifting, maybe the front one a little bit. But nice cup holders, electronic handbrake, everybody freaks out. It doesn't bother me. And then you have your mode selection here. So you have Sport, Tour, and Weather. Tour is your normal mode. That uses the active exhaust really well, actually. The active exhaust is quiet until you give it like a bit more throttle, and then it gets loud when you want it to. Sport gives you heavier steering and turns the exhaust so it's loud all the time, and I think it gives you better throttle response. And then Snow just takes your throttle response way down, so it's really hard to like drive quickly, basically, which is what you want in the snow. But back to this interior, like I said, I love how it's laid out. Whatever is in the screen should be in the screen. Whatever a button should be a button. There's none of this like climate controls in the screen or heated seats and all that in the screen. It's right here. I want cooled seats. There you go. I have cooled seats. It's just, I love that, and I love how that is integrated. Now, before we go for a drive, I dropped my keys. I want to show you guys the back seat. Now, this car does have a back seat. It's a 4-seater. It's not even trying to be a 5-seater. You just lift up this latch here, folds forward, and that's not really enough room to get in, so you can just kind of scooch it forward. You can climb in gracefully, and I'm in. Now, I have to say, this is not the worst back seat in the world. Legroom, if a short person is driving, is actually fine. This is where I would be driving, which subtracts my legroom quite a bit. My headroom is the worst though. You can see I have no headroom at all. But because I am exceptionally tall, anyone else should be able to fit in the back seat of the Camaro. You also have a wireless charging pad, which is pretty cool back here. So if you wanted to, you could put your phone here and it would charge it. The only problem is you don't have wireless Apple CarPlay. I have to plug it in anyway, so I don't really use the wireless charger. But if anybody else wants to, it is there. And if you really need back seats, you have them in this car. All right, so driving my new Camaro. For anyone wondering, some long-term viewers who knew my Dart was my daily, I wanted a new car, I'm gonna be honest. I wanted a nicer car to drive. I've been working now for quite a while. I saved up some money. I decided to treat myself a little bit. And I was looking through quite a lot of options. I did not want a crossover, which is like 90% of the cars you can buy right now. I also wanted something newer. So I wanted Apple CarPlay. I've been traveling a bit. I've had rental cars that had Apple CarPlay, and I'm like, you know, this is really nice. You can listen to music and you can change the playlist you're listening to while you're driving. I never had that before in the Dart. It had a voice recognition system that was so bad, and just the tiny little screen in there, it was difficult to work with. The Apple CarPlay works great. If you have Apple CarPlay, that's all you need in the screen. I also wanted something with a bit of pep to it, which we will now demonstrate. The V6 deceive you. The V8 is crazy fast, 455 horsepower. This makes 100 less horsepower than that, but it's still fast, 300 horsepower. This car weighs about 3,400 pounds. This car is fast, so I wanted something that was quick. I wanted something with technology, and I wanted something cool. I like cool cars. Camaros are cool. I always loved how the 6th generation Camaro looked. But I was looking at other stuff, and honestly, I could not find something with all of those things together that was better than the Camaro. This also is a manual. I kind of didn't mention that. This is a 6-speed manual. If I wanted to find something that was quick, affordable, not a crossover, and had new enough technology that it had like cooled and heated seats and Apple CarPlay, this is like the only car I could find. You want like an Audi S5, which you can't get in a manual, the new ones, or an old Audi S5, which you could get in a manual. All of those are like over $30,000 plus for a car with worse technology, and it's not as fast and probably not as reliable. I also think the Camaro looks better, and I've only owned American cars, and this just kind of keeps that going. And so far, I've had it for maybe 3 months. I've loved it. The biggest thing that everybody says why they don't want a Camaro is the visibility. You can't see out of it, all that. You know, it takes a little bit to get used to it. The windshield is very small, height-wise, but it's really not that bad, I have to say. You get used to it. The window is small. The biggest thing with visibility is your blind spots, your 3/4 like behind view. You want to change lanes, you look, and it's like there's just this tiny little window and a huge C-pillar that kind of blocks most of it. Now that's for the design, obviously. All of this is for the design, and I would rather have less visibility in a cool looking car. That's just me. You get a nice backup camera, you get these huge mirrors, and you get the blind spot monitoring, which helps a lot. It lights up yellow if somebody's in your blind spot because you can't see because of the huge pillars. Everything in this car as well, the technology all works really well. I've had no problems with the screen. I've had no problems with anything here. The cooled seats work really well. The heated seats work really well. The heated steering wheel works awesome. All of that works great. So the Camaro obviously has a ton of trims. This is sort of the lowest trim you can get other than the 4-cylinder, which I have also driven. I had a 4-cylinder Camaro as a rental car. And I have to say, if you are perhaps looking for one and you're trying to decide, step up to the V6. I really think it's worth it. The 4-cylinder is turbocharged. It's a 2-liter turbocharged engine. They're about the same speed. If performance is the only thing you care about, there's not really that much of a difference. The 4-cylinder actually makes more torque, but the power band and the just nature of the V6, I think, is so much more worth it. It's naturally aspirated, which, by the way, name one car as well that has a naturally aspirated engine today. Everything is turbocharged. This is sort of a breath of fresh air. It's a naturally aspirated V6, and it sounds great if you heard it during that acceleration there. I say just step up to the V6. It's smoother, it sounds better, it just adds so much to the driving experience. This car's also manual. You can get it with an automatic, and again, I hate to keep saying it, I'm sure you heard a lot, get the manual. You gotta get the manual. I've driven the automatic as well. Like I said, that 4-cylinder I drove was an automatic, and it was kind of just shuddery. At low speeds, it didn't really know what gear to be in. It's just like, just shift it yourself. This car is kind of built sort of ground up for the Camaro. I feel like maybe not, because the chassis is in some other cars, but this chassis is the same one that's in the ZL1, and the ZL1 goes up to 650 horsepower and it can go, you know, like 200 miles an hour. This car obviously can't do that. I make a lot less power, and I don't have the tires or the fancy magnorheological dampeners, but because this car has that performance potential, it all just feels very solid and well built. Like, I'm cruising at 80 in the highway on this car, and it is solid, nothing's rattling, there's no wind noise, it is just set. To quote the local mechanic, when he drove this car, he did some work on it for me. He said, the only thing that's trying hard is the engine. And it does kind of feel like that. The story with this car in particular, I wanted this specific Camaro. I didn't just want any 2LT. I wanted the V6 because I couldn't lower myself to the 4-cylinder. Like I said, everybody has a Turbo 4. I wanted something different. The V6 is great. I wanted a manual. I got it in a manual. With the 1LT, you get a smaller screen. You don't get the nice gauge cluster. You don't get heated seats and the mood lighting, which is still my favorite. You don't get all that. So I wanted all of those things. And this one in this spec in particular, it's very hard to find one with the silver gray interior. That's also the 2LT. It's got the RS package, so it's got the nice wheels on it, the little fin on the back, and this color. The problem is, the only one I could find, this one, was in Florida. I live in New Jersey. So I actually had it shipped here. I bought the car sight unseen, which, for everybody groaning in the audience now, yeah, it wasn't a great idea. I had it shipped here, and then I shipped my Dart to them because it was a trade-in. Oh my gosh, it was such a nightmare. Everybody, please go look at the car before you buy it. When I got it here, it had the terrible window tint in it, which was falling out. I had all that replaced, thankfully. This looks great now. Like, to the point you couldn't even see out of the rear window. The shifter, so interesting thing with these shifters, it has these rubber bushings in it, and it's only for the V6 and 4-cylinder Camaros. It has these rubber bearings in it which control your side-to-side action. Those were shot. Like, they were gone. Like, you looked at it under the car, and there wasn't even any in there. Your play side-to-side was crazy high. I actually found metal bearings online for those and had those installed, so the shifter's nice now. This is also an Alcantara shifter that I had put in here. The original, I think, is leather. The Alcantara is only available if you got the track pack for this car. Got the 1LE package. This doesn't have that because, again, it's my daily. I don't need all the track package stuff. Talk about driving modes a little bit. That was tour mode. We are going into sport mode, which loudens your exhaust and weights up your steering a little bit for the handling section of the video. And just like that, we are over the speed limit just a little bit. And it's great for passing bikers. The great thing about this engine, well, it's one of the things about this engine, max power is achieved at 6,800 RPM, so 200 RPM off redline. It builds all the way up through the rev line, which is such a great thing about naturally aspirated engines. Going through those corners, this car is so planted. The steering feel is very nice. It's a little lighter in Tour than it is in Sport, but it just weights up around the corners and you get a good idea of what the front wheels are doing. Then you get to get on the power. This car is already so fast. I don't know if I need another 100 horsepower for daily driving. Like, I rev it all the way out in second gear and you're already going probably over the speed limit. Like, this is a performance car, which is another great thing I think Chevy did with this. They could have made this just a worse version of the SS, but this V6 is a great performance engine. It sounds great, it makes a ton of power, it revs like crazy, and you can also get the nice interior packages in here. So next time you see a V6 Camaro and you go, oh, that guy couldn't afford a V8. Well, it might be something to consider. Like, this is a great looking car that drives great, and I get 22 miles per gallon. In conclusion with this car, I think it's a great performance car. It drives great. I've driven it in the snow. It can handle it, and it looks great. It's a great way to say no to a crossover. Get a Camaro.